Welcome to the Bearded Finisher Podcast, your one-stop show for all things finishing and coatings. Your host, Zach, and a variety of industry experts will guide you through the art of perfecting your finishing and business game. From seasoned pros to fresh faces, get ready for tips, tricks, and trends to elevate your knowledge and business to the next level.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Bearded Finisher Podcast. Today's episode, we have got the one, the only, Mr. Dennis Rodriguez with Midway Interiors. What's up, Dennis?
Hey, how we doing, Zach, man? It was a long time coming to set this up, man. I mean, I'm kind of excited to be here.
Man, I'm glad to finally get you on. I was actually supposed to record Eric yesterday, and he called me, and he was like, dude, I'm clanging and banging, and I don't have time. And I'm like, all right. Then he called me this morning or emailed me. He's like, hey, you got time this morning? I'm like, oh, man, I already got 2 on the books. So I'm still trying to get Dennis on. And then I think I want to get, we need to get both of you guys on one and do like a little live panel.
That's always a good one. I mean, I don't know how it all came about, but Eric and I seem to have a super good chemistry. For the guys that don't know who Eric is, who maybe are jumping on to watch this podcast, Eric Reeson, I mean, he set up the whole test, don't guess, trying to figure out what were the baddest of the bad coatings out there on the market. I mean, truly a really good guy, open, super knowledgeable, and he's the reason why I got into water-based finishing, man. I mean, really, he is, he
kind of kicked off that revolution.
I think he was one of the pioneers in setting up the water-based revolution, no doubt. I think he needs to have more credit put towards his way. I don't think I would be where I am, social media presence wise or any other. I mean, if it wouldn't have been for, our beginning and our story and how it kind of evolved, it was pretty trip, so.
Well, let's just kick it off. I mean, kind of let everybody know your history, how you got into Midway, how that progressed, and we'll just kind of start there and kick that into the whole water-based revolution and just kind of give us a rundown.
So the story actually starts with Midway, and why, Midway is what it is my grandfather actually ran Midway Upholstery shop. And this is back in the 60s and 70s. He actually ran the shop. The owners who owned the shop didn't know anything about furniture restoration. They were business owners. And my grandfather ran the shop for them. My dad was in the trade also. My dad was a custom upholsterer and customer furniture builder, and didn't have a lot of finishing skills, but he was good at what he did. He had gone to Vietnam after coming back from Vietnam, and he was looking for something to get into, and he fell back on his trade. He fell back on the restoration trade, but he wanted to do a little bit more. He didn't have a high school education. He never finished high school, but went back to school, got his GED, and then fast forward, ended up getting an associate's degree and things like that. So he worked in different businesses, always with the dream and hustle of having his own business. The shop that my grandfather worked at was a very small shop, and so it wasn't really enough room for my dad to be there. But because of my dad's talents and because of his skills in the industry, he got notice from a couple different companies for his time study skills and how to time manage projects. And that's what he was brought in for, as a specialist, to be able to time study and to time schedule jobs in the upholstery industry. Fast forward, he ended up getting a job with a company called Recaro USA, which is well known for their automotive seats. And when he actually started with the company, they were just breaking into automotive seats. They were actually designing and building airline seats for custom jets originally. So I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Recaro USA, but they build a high performance automotive seat. So he was brought into that company, and that was in Torrance, California. He was brought into that company to time study and to help them to be more efficient, because the people that worked there were all about, of course, the best of the best, putting out superior product, but didn't have a way to time manage the projects. So they were going way over budget. Worked with them for a couple years, went to Germany, trained in Germany, came back. And when he had come back from Germany, this was after my grandfather had passed away. This was a couple years forward. The owners of Midway had reached out to my dad and asked him if he was interested in taking over the business. They were going to retire, and they felt like the business wouldn't even have been there if it wouldn't have been for my grandfather. And they were basically willing to give him the business. He just had to pay for the supplies that were in the business. And my dad always had that dream to own his own business. And so he took the leap. He took a small loan out on his house. He paid out the supplies, and he took over Midway, what was Midway Upholstery Shop. And that's kind of how we started. Yeah, so it was a trip. And Midway Upholstery Shop started with my dad owning it in 1976. Around 1976 is when my dad took it over. And fast forward us growing up in the shop and growing up in the industry with him. A lot of people maybe don't even know this, but my first trade before I ever got into finishing was upholstery. So I can cut, sew machine with a sewing machine, biscuit tuft, diamond tuft. Yeah, my dad actually had a shop that did all the refinishing work for the business. We did touch-ups, we did burn-ins, touch-ups, and repairs, but we didn't do the full refinishing side of it. So by that time, I was around maybe 15 or so, and the owner of that other shop had actually came to my dad and said, hey, we found another upholstery shop that's willing to do the upholstery work for us, but they're 20% less. And, we want to continue doing business with you if you're willing to cut your prices and match this other shop's prices. Well, at that time, my dad was basically giving him all this refinishing work, furniture-wise, dining room tables, chairs, armoires, big furniture pieces. And my dad's like, hey, I'm giving you $60,000 worth of work a year. I'm not asking for a nickel. You're taking our upholstery work. You're stepping on it 10, 15, 20%. You're making a profit out of it. He goes, no, it doesn't that doesn't sound right. My dad says, that's fine. If you decide you want to do that, that's fine. I'm not lowering my prices, but we're not going to give you any more finishing work. Mind you, this is probably in 1987 or 88. 1987 or 1988. I was just going to be a freshman in high school. And my dad says, hey, man, you got to figure out this refinishing stuff. And I could do touch-ups. I knew how to work the whole Mohawk system. I knew how to do burn-ins. I know how to do fill repairs. I know how to use all the aerosol cans for doing repair work and touch-up work. I was pretty good at that, but had never done a full refinishing project like stripping furniture or sanding or any of that side of it. So he's like, come on, let's go down to the library. And the library was literally not even 200 yards from our shop. So we went to the Downey Library, and we went down there and we got every single book that there was on refinishing. And I had to try to figure it out. And I struggled and failed and had successes when I didn't know what I was doing, and failed and struggled, So it was just one of those things. But within about a year or two, I got to be pretty proficient at it. The one thing that helped was I met a friend who actually had a shop where they did stripping. They did custom furniture removal, like all the old varnish removal. And the old man gave me a little bit of pointers and helping me. The son, me and him, his name was Mike. We became very, very good friends. And they definitely kind of they pointed me in the right direction. Because they did furniture refinishing also, it was kind of like a little bit of competition. But they were open enough to give me enough pointers to get me going in the right direction. So I mean that's how I got into the furniture refinishing side of it. And learning how to troubleshoot when you dealt with fisheye, when you dealt with contamination, and you dealt with all these different little things that you deal with, getting into the refinishing side of it. And that's kind of how the journey started. Fast forward a couple years from there, I was probably around 18 or 19, and we had a friend His name was John. He would come into our shop all the time. He was a general contractor. And I met him through fishing, and he was a real good guy. His business was local. But, like, if he finished early, he'd come into the shop and just hang out. Rainy days, he'd come in. We always had coffee in the shop, so he'd come in and shoot the crap with us in the shop and hang out and stuff like that. And one day, he came into the shop. We were sitting there talking. And he goes, Dennis, hey, guys, I know you guys do a bunch of refinishing. He's like, have you ever done a kitchen? I was like, no, I've never done a kitchen. No, we just do furniture. He goes, well, here's the issue. I got a painter who hasn't shown up in 3 weeks, and I need to get these cabinets stained and finished. He's like, do you think that's something you could be able to do? And I said, yeah, sure. I go, what color? And of course it was like golden oak or something like that. I mean, what they did in them days, it was like golden oak or honey oak or something like that. And I was like, yeah, sure, I can do it. I said, but that's something I had to do on the weekends or after hours. My dad's probably, we have furniture and stuff in the shop going. He goes, that's fine. He's like, you got 2.5, 3 weeks to do the job. He's like, I'll bring you all the doors down here, do all the doors, and then you can go out on site and do the boxes. So that was my first kitchen refinish that I had ever done. And I was probably around between 18 and 19, about 18 years old. And I did all the doors first. I did it all on my own. I didn't have no help. I did it all on my own. I did all the doors first, stained them up, seal coat, clear coated them. We were using, nitrocellulose lacquer. Back then, we're talking about VOCs of, 1120 and 760. I mean, it was the old school good stuff, it was the good stuff. And, I finished the project and he was really happy with it. He goes, man, this stuff just feels so much more like furniture. It's all buttery feeling and, God, it feels real nice. And he goes, and we never discussed, mind you, Zach, we never discussed money. We never discussed how much it was going to be or anything. He had the lacquer and all that stuff that he had already purchased for the job. So he just gave me all the materials and we did the job. So after he gives me an envelope and pays me for the job, and I just put it in my pocket. I said, hey, thanks, And he goes, well, I might have another couple vanities for you if you're interested in doing them. He's like, but the vanities, I can bring the whole thing to your shop. I was like, yeah, sure. To me, I thought it was easy.
I mean, that's just like walking around money.
Well, I thought it was easy. I thought the work was easy because it's just dealing with flat doors and boxes, right? I mean, we were dealing with intricate furniture that had detail and scroll work and curvature and all this other stuff, which to me was a lot more detailed than just doing flat boxes and doors. So I was like, this wasn't bad. But when I opened the envelope and I seen the amount of money in there, I called him. I was like, hey, John, I think you made a mistake. This is a lot of money. He goes, Dennis, he goes, that's what I would have paid the painter to do it. And it was like, I want to say it was around $3,000. And, mind you, 18-year-old kid making $3,000. I think at that time, no bullshit, Zach, I was making like $250 a week. I think I was taking home $250 or $260 a week in that time period. So it was a lot of money, it was a lot of money. And I told my dad, I said, Dad, I go, you got when you're out there selling these jobs, let these people know that we can do refinishing. He goes, what do you mean? I go, refinishing. Like we can strip it. We're doing all this furniture work. I said, we can strip their cabinets and restain them different colors, or if they want them painted, we can paint them, whatever. So he's like, all right. And then we started getting a couple jobs, maybe not a lot, but like say a job every month or sometimes every other month we were getting jobs. But the thing is that the profit margin in the cabinet refinishing compared to the upholstery work that we were doing back then, to reupholster a couch, we get around $1,100 to reupholster a couch. The foam, the fabric, the springs, everything that would be into it was like $500, right? And then you had labor on it. For one guy to do the couch for a week was $200. You had a couple $100 left over for profit. It was like 20% margins maybe. The refinishing side of the business was like 60% margins. Maybe more sometimes, depending on the job that you were doing. So I like jumped all in, man. I went all in with both feet. I was like, this is where we're
why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? Exactly. So that's I went in all in, and that's kind of how my journey started in the refinishing business. That's really how it started in the refinishing business. And we started doing projects. It's crazy, man. It's just crazy. It was just by luck. It was by chance. You know, it was really by chance that the cabinet finisher, I mean, the other finisher we had, by him blowing us off, and by my dad being stubborn and saying, F it, we're going to do it in-house. And then having the luck of my friend John giving me the opportunity to do the first job. All those were just things that just by chance. So fast forward from there, 2002, 2003, my old man starts talking about retiring. He's like, I'm done here soon. I'm like, you're done? You're like 64 years old. What do you talk? You're done. I mean, you're still young, you know? I'm like, 64? No, you're still good. He goes, no. He goes, I'm almost done. So we would meet every Tuesday for breakfast at 6 a.m. Rain, shine, or whatever. We would always meet on Tuesday, 6 a.m. for breakfast. And I think it was like the last week of 2003, we met, and he goes, this is my last week. Just like that. I knew he was coming, but that's it. You know, this is my last week. And I was like, what? He
He's
goes,
like, no talking me out of it. I'm done.
No talking me out. He's, listen, I'll be here if you need anything. If you're running any problems, I'll be here. And Zach, by that time in 2003, I was already doing the invoices. I was already doing the paperwork. I was already doing the estimates. I was already billing the jobs out. I was doing all that by that time. So, you know, but it was still kind of scary not knowing, you know, the future.
Yeah, just not having that, I mean, proverbial crutch is just
the security blanket, right? The security blanket of having somebody who's got a lot of experience in the game, who's been around for many, many years, you know. And but I told my dad, I said, hey, I'm just letting you know, heads up, you know, I'm going to shut the shop down. I'm not going to stay doing furniture. And he said, Dennis, it's your business. You do what the hell you want with it. I don't care, really. And so I basically let my guys know that I was going to shut it down, that we were going to stay in business for another year. The only benefit and the fortunate thing is that the guys that work for us, we had 3 full-time employees. They were all also in their mid-60s. They were already at that time of retirement. They were older guys. I was a young kid that managed these guys, but through years of working with them and building respect by hard work, they still respected me quite a bit. So I told them, I said, listen, I'll keep the business open for another year, 2 years tops. It's basically just going to be you guys. I'll be going on the estimates. I'll be selling the jobs, but it's going to be basically you guys just working for your paychecks, because I'm going on this other adventure trying to open up a refinishing business doing cabinetry. And I didn't really know nothing about it. I didn't know how I was going to go about it. Again, I'm knocking on doors. I'm knocking on cabinet shop doors looking for work. And that's kind of how I started, was doing custom cabinet refinishing for a couple shops that did not do their own finishing. That's how I started. It wasn't really it was dealing with a little bit of homeowner stuff, but it was more dealing with shops that did not do their own finishing. And there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of shops out there. I tell these guys, you know, that you got to go that route, because there's a lot of opportunities out there. Your price point's going to be a little bit less, but where you make up for it is you make up for it in quantity of work that comes your way. You know, so I did that for a little bit. Things had slowed down with that 2007, 2008 time, like a lot of other businesses. We had a little bit of a back turn in the economy, but I had found a little bit of a niche, and that was in the water remediation industry, doing water remediation repair work, and that was huge for my business, because of my capabilities of being able to color match stain, color match paint and glaze and toning and all those things. There was nothing that I couldn't do in the color matching side of it. They loved me because they could go out and see a water damage that a dishwasher had caused, but only the lowers were damaged, 9 feet or 12 feet of lowers. So they could rebuild the boxes only, because usually the doors didn't get damaged. It would only be the boxes that got damaged. They could rebuild the boxes have me color match the stain to the doors and everything, and then just do a color adjustment on the whole job. And I don't know how the insurances build it, but they were making a lot of money. And the work flooded in for us. The work flooded in like nobody's business. So that was a blessing, man. I mean, that was a blessing because that part of the business probably carried me for about 12 years, where at that point it was probably 50% of our business that came in was water remediation repair work. It was water remediation repair work. So, that's kind of how we started. How I got into the water base was pre-2010, 12. The products were pretty good. We didn't have any problems. We didn't have a lot of callbacks. We didn't have a lot of damage. We didn't have a lot of refinishing failures, the jobs that we did. But 2010, 12 in California, they changed the compliancy with the coatings, and especially in the lacquer finishes, they pulled xylene out of the lacquer and replaced it with mostly just acetone, which basically took the guts. In my opinion, that took the guts out of the coating.
They got Oxol. Oxol was a replacement solvent they could use instead of xylene, but
yeah. So I mean, and it caused a lot of problems. So say from 2000, whatever, 14-ish, 12-ish, whatever it was, for the next 4 or 5 years, I struggled, man. I mean, we were doing all this beautiful work, and it would be like hope and pray that we got past the year warranty, because with the insurance work that we did, you were on the hook 100% for 1 year. No questions asked. Any damage, you were on the hook for 1 year. So you had to warranty the work for 1 full year. No questions asked. So it would always be like, trying to get through that time period. And I said, you know what? We got to figure out another way. So I started looking at other systems. We ended up getting into conversion varnish, and we ran conversion varnish for a couple years. But mind you, from 1993, 4, 5, up until that period of time, I had ran nothing but pre-catalyzed lacquer, and then getting into conversion varnish, my system had gotten sensitive to the solvents, especially the acid catalyst solvent. So within 2 to 3 years, it was physically making me ill to do my trade. Where it didn't matter, and I didn't know about fresh air masks and all that stuff. I mean, I didn't know about all that stuff. I was using a really good respirator, the same respirator that I'm running today, the Binks 3000. I've been running that respirator from the beginning. I had gone off over to a 3M mask for a short period of time, but now I'm back on the Binks, and did everything that I could do that was right. People who follow me and know me, they've seen our systems and how we set up. On-site systems, plenty of ventilation, air movers, air scrubbers, the whole 9 yards to protect the job site, and I would still get sensitive to it. It would hit me like 3 or 4, 5 hours later. I'd get these really, really bad asthmatic symptoms. It didn't hit me right away. It would hit me 3 or 4 hours later.
that formaldehyde that was in a lot of those is always a latent effect.
So imagine if you're doing this for your living every single day, and it's affecting you every single day. So, I started going down the wormhole of water-based coatings. The first experience that I had was with Enduro. And Enduro's it's an okay product. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a horrible product. It's an okay, decent product, but it wasn't what I was looking for, So I kept looking, kept searching. Sherwin-Williams and a couple other companies, Dunn Edwards, had come out with the Zenith water-based lacquers and a bunch of other stuff. The problem is you could not spray it on site because it had 0 vertical hang. I mean, you would even if you try spraying it with a cup gun with a 1.3 needle. I mean, if you looked at it sideways, the stuff would be on the ground. It would just run all over the place.
I remember that Zenith.
Yeah, it was extremely tough to spray. Yeah. So, Now we're getting closer to 2017, 2018, and I'm on the internet. Now I'm on YouTube. YouTube is available now. And I don't I'm the least computer literate searcher anything than anybody on the world, man. I suck at it, man. So
I'm right there
but
with you.
I started finding these videos of these guys using these different products, and that's when I came across a video from Eric, and it was probably around 2018 I came across one of his videos and one of his test don't guess videos, and I started doing a little bit of research. Ended up finding out that they had a distributor here in California, which was MK Sales. Um, Reached out to the rep and purchased a sample of it, and was able to talk to Eric on the phone a couple times, just kind of figuring it out. And it probably took me about maybe 3 weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks to figure out how to spray it, how to get it dialed in. So from 2018 to 2019, we were running Renner, but I was only running it on bathrooms and bathroom vanities and built-ins and stuff like that I could do in my shop because I could control the parameters of it. I hadn't gone out and sprayed it on site. We were still running solvent on site. We were running the water base in the shop, just getting a feel for it. So I spent about a year spraying it and getting comfortable with it. And then literally we made the jump. On the first refinishing project I did was a full refinish project. It was a large job, probably 116 linear feet. I told my guys, I said, this is the job we're going to pull the trigger on. We're going to do the whole thing. And that was probably like January or February of 2019. I said, we're all in. We're going to do it. I had been running it for a year, but I had still. And I failed miserably, in the beginning, not because of the vertical hang, because of the cold weather and not knowing to keep the house warm and all that stuff. But we got through it and the job turned out amazing. I mean, because we knew how to make the product look good. It was just dealing with the environment and how to deal with it on site when you walk into a house and they don't know. You haven't discussed it with them because you don't know. You walk in a house, it's 54 degrees construction site. They're remodeling half the house. You're refinishing the cabinets. There's no heat in the house. Type of situation. And but between 2019 and 2021, I got the system dialed in. Really, really dialed in. And then, of course, as you know, I started experimenting and doing similar things that Eric was doing and testing multiple coatings. I didn't want to get pigeonholed into one because I wanted to be able to be diverse because of supply chain issues that I had seen with some of the brands. I had seen issues with, not having enough stock or being short. And I've always been the type of person, even when we were running solvent, was being pretty diverse on the different lines that we used. And just because of that same reason, we'd go in and they didn't have no tension. Well, okay, shit, no worries. Okay, they don't have tension. Let me go over here. I know they got tension, and not having to be stuck and have any delays and stuff like that. But I think the biggest challenge in the beginning, for us when we started to run these systems was just coordinating the material orders and having the material on hand. I think that's the biggest struggle that most people have, and that's the one thing that I see the most is that people are so concerned that they have to order it. That's their biggest concern, is that they have to order it. At the same time, I hear these same people saying that they're booked out 3, 4, 5 months out, 6 months out. So to myself, I'm saying, if you're booked 3, 4, 5 months out, you should never have a supply chain issue with any of your materials. And so now what we do, you shouldn't.
No, but even at the same time, I was using water base. I think we started around 17, and my guys, I mean, they bitched and moaned, and this stuff sucks. Give me the pre-cat. Let's go back to the CV. And I'm like, guys, this is coming. It's going to happen. The sooner we adapt to this, we're going to be above everyone else when it does finally hit. And the guy that I sold my business to was my foreman for, even into my father-in-law had the business 15 years. And I just saw him this past week and he was like, I give you a lot of shit, Zach, but man, we're killing it with water-based. Everyone else is still struggling. And I'm like, is that a thank you I hear?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean that's the whole thing. Yeah, yeah.
But even at that, like when we were doing water-based, like I hear a lot of guys talking about ordering, like, same thing. And granted, every distributor, every manufacturer wants their product sold everywhere. The internet has changed a lot of stuff for that. And now that paint and shipping distributors, but I had issue getting water-based products from a local distributor. Just, it doesn't matter if it's being shipped. Like, you have to plan ahead for these jobs, and you have to be able to know approximate square footage and millage, and so what the square foot coverage is, because even in the early days of water-based, like I would still order enough and I'd be like, crap, I'm gonna have to redo this one door, I'm just not happy with it, and I'm gonna need another gallon to do it, and call the paint store, and they're like, oh yeah, man, we only keep enough on hand for you, so it's gonna take a few days. And I just have to learn over time until you get to the point now to where you're making your own colors. And that was life-changing to make your own colors and not have to wait on color matches.
I haven't gone that far yet. We are doing that with the stain systems out there. Um, I haven't gone that far with the paints, but so for us, what I did figure out was this. This is the one thing that I did figure out that was huge for my business. Bulk order all the primers that you use and have them in stock all the time. Bulk order those, because a lot of times you can get way better pricing. So if I reached out to you and you're a distributor and I say, okay, we want primer, and okay, well, your gallon, I'm just going to throw a basic number. Say your gallon price is, $75 a gallon. But if I call and I order a lift of that primer, I can more than likely get that primer for $58 a gallon, maybe $60 a gallon. Okay. And to me, that was smart to not have to worry about the one most important thing that you need to start a job, which is primer. So that's what we started doing, is we started bulk ordering primer and having it in the shop all the time. The 2 or 3 primers that we ran, having that in the shop all the time, and then the coating. So even if I had a color change on a job, right? Even if I had a color change on a job and it happens, we're good to get the job started, because we can start running primer and everything, getting it all sanded. So that's going to take about a day and a half. Most of the time, if I need it, I can have something shipped within 48 hours, right? So that was kind of the good thing. But what we started doing is we just started to think outside the box and how to circumvent this issue. So the first thing I did, and this was some advice from a buddy of mine, Denny Jans, was to have a line of colors that are your signature line, and you keep those in stock all the time. So I was like, that's not a bad idea. So we ended up doing is I ended up carrying. I'm in California, so there's the designers are a little weird, So they can paint a house 16 shades. They can paint a house 16 shades of white. Okay, that's just how that's how crazy it can get, right? So I said, originally I was going to carry 3 whites. We ended up carrying 5 whites. Those are our standard whites. Out of those 5 whites, I'm going to say 90% of the time, I sell one of our standard whites, which now I don't have to go anywhere. The other thing I'm able to do is what? I'm able to bulk order that color. Yep. So not only am I bulk ordering my primer, but I'm bulk ordering those whites. So I can typically purchase between 2 to 3 5s of each white, have them in the shop at all time. Now let me tell you something. Originally, my wife was like, "You're crazy. You're placing an order for $5,000, for $7,000. You're placing an order for $4,000." I said, "Yeah, but it's money in the bank. Trust me, it's money in the bank. It's definitely, it's like a savings account sitting right there on the shelf. And because we ran through so many projects, it's not like it sat there for more than a couple months." So I started doing that, carried a couple shades of gray, carried a couple blues, and that was it. I didn't carry reds or anything like that. A couple blues, 3 shades of gray, and the whites. And it helped us, man. And it still helps us to this day. So that, and as soon as I sign a contract with the client, and I get a deposit, the first thing I do is order the coatings. So like right now we're booking jobs into November. So I have two-day openings for on-site in September. I have two-day openings in October. I have one opening November, one opening in December. I'm talking 2 days on site. That's the only days that I have available. Every other day from here to the end of the year, December is accounted for already.
And half the paint's already ordered.
And half the paint's already ordered. It's sitting in the shop. It's sitting in the shop ready to go. I don't have to think about it, And then I didn't do this up until last year, but I started job naming all the materials. So when the job comes, I should have thought of this in the beginning. I mean, I'm kind of slow, but last year I started job naming all of the colors that come in. So it would be Benjamin Moore, Alligator Alley, / Johnson job. So it made it real easy for my guys to, be able to pull the coatings out, and it had the customer name on it. It made it a lot easier for us, to be able to figure all that out. And I'm the least organized person. Right. That's perfect, But I mean, I'm the least organized person in a shop. Trust me. I mean, my shop looks like a junkyard. Okay, my shop actually looks like a junkyard. But those couple little things have definitely helped us to be able to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to having to order products. Being able to stay ahead of me not having to spend the time the day of or day before trying to run around to the store and buy coatings. Just bulk order them and we have them there. Pre-order all my paints for the job sites. I mean, it's completely changed the game for how we run business, really has.
I mean, it's just, I talk to guys all the time and they're like just trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. And I just say, painting is a skill set, 100%. Running a business is also a skill set. If you're good at painting, you've got to learn how to run a business if you want to run a painting business. Like, you have to learn organization. You have to learn finances. Otherwise, you're just a hobby painter. I mean, and I think that's a big, I don't know about lesson or an area of growth that our industry has, is teaching guys to be business owners instead of just painters. I mean, Nick Slavic was huge in that for me, following him and talking to him as I started growing in the business side of, making sure your guys have everything. So you're not ordering on every job, your sundries, just in time inventory, if you have a place to store it. And, I can't remember who told me one time, but it was like, man, if you don't have any place to store stuff, if you've got land or you can find something, go rent a storage unit, rent a container.
Oh, you could do a little 6x8 storage costs you probably $40 a month or something like that, and keep all your sundries there.
Yeah, and stock your sundries for the next 6 jobs, and you just go there and pick them up in the morning. Or if you have, I mean, it was just little things like that I learned along the way that, admittedly, later than I probably should have learned them. But
I mean, that's exactly how we run the business. So even on sundries, guys. So like same thing on sundries. Okay, a lot of the stores at the end of the year, as you know, they want to dump inventory. Okay, so they wanted to. So like Sherwin-Williams, I have a pretty decent a relationship with. Also, some of the Benjamin Moore stores out there, Paint Garden, Duval Paint, and a couple of the other stores that I deal with, and a lot of them have end of the year. They want to peel off that. They don't want to have that inventory on their books. So sometimes it's beneficial for them to even lower the price cheaper than these bucket deals that they put out there. And sometimes considerably less. Now, listen, I'm a contractor. I'm not a general contractor. I'm a C33 licensed painter here in California. We get really good pricing as it is. Once you show up with your licensing and all that, Home Depot, all the stores, they give you pretty good discounting. But the sundry side of it, if you can get even 15 or 20% additional off of what you're paying. So at the end of the year, same thing. A lot of times the stores reach out to me. I'll drop $5,000, $6,000 on sundries. These things don't expire. Paper, tape, plastic, rosin paper. Buy a lift of rosin paper. All that stuff. It's in the shop now. I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, whatever. If you're a painter and you brush and rolls, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to tell guys all the time what I worked out with my couple of my local distributors that I had was, okay, let's work out a deal. I'm spending 150K a year with you or 100K a year. Man, if I pay my bill on time every month, at the end of the year, whatever I spend, why don't you give me 3% credit, 5% credit to spend in your store? And you can get it to where it works. Man, I was to the point to where at the end of the year, I'd take that credit, nothing, and in their store. So they loyalty, because you want to get a bigger credit, so you're going to buy from them. And couldn't buy paint, wasn't allowed to buy paint, was only allowed to buy sundries. So I'd buy paper, tape, plastic, and then you're stocked up for the first 6 to 9 months of the year.
Yeah, the first time I did that was probably in 2017 or 18 was the first time I had done that. And I bought cases and cases of frog tape. And I think we got into June. Before I had to go back to the store, that we were able to just peel off of the supplies that I had purchased. And after that, I was like, this is really the only way to do it. This is the only way to do it. Buying 2 to 3 rolls of tape at a time, you're paying $7 a roll of frog tape. When you buy it in bulk, you're probably saving yourself $2.50 a roll. When you go through as much tape as we do, and I'm not a big house painter who are going through 10 times the tape that I'm going through, man, it adds up real quick.
Adds up fast. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are little things that I can say, that would help. Even the small business guys, if you can try to bulk order a little bit of stuff. I would say the primers would probably be the first thing that I would probably jump on. The next thing would be having a select system of colors. You can shorten it down. You could have 3 whites. You could have 3 white, or just have a basic white system that you carry in stock. 3 basic whites will save you tons of time and tons of money, because still everybody's painting their cabinets white. That's still big.
I found that 9 times out of 10, I could take package white when I was using Circa a lot. I could hit 75% of the whites that these designers wanted. They were like, oh, we want this white. And I just show them the door. Here's my package white. And they're like, yeah, that works. Unless there was some yellow in it. But most of the time,
Well, that's the whole thing. Is it's funny because if I go out to sell a job on a cold sale, what I call a cold sale is basically somebody's just recommended me. Like they've gotten my phone number from somebody. That to me is a cold sale. I always take a backpack with me, and I have 3 door samples. Typically, I have one that's stain grade, I have one that's white, and then I have a dark door. I think the one that we have is like a blue or gray. And the doors are pristine. I would say 9 out of 10 times, if they're wanting white, 9 out of 10 times, if they want white, the white freaking door that I took is the white color that they picked. Which you want to know what white that is? Standard white, right out of the can.
Right out of the can, baby.
Right out of the can. 9 out of 10 times. 9 out of 10 times. That's the color they'll pick. So, you can kind of, push the customers which direction you go. They're looking at you for insight, and they're looking at you for advice. That's the one thing I don't do. I don't do color consultations, even though I have tons of experience in colors and seeing colors that work well together. I don't do color consultations. I do have a designer that I'll refer to them that goes, and she can waste her 5 or 6 hours, doing all that stuff. I don't do that. I used to do it, but it bit me in the ass 2 different times where the customer was like, you said this color was, and I'm like, I ain't doing it. After the first time I said I'm not doing it again. Then I got trapped into it again, and then that was the last time that I helped pick colors for a job.
I was talking to another guy. Who was I talking to? I was interviewing. Can't remember, but same thing. He was like, oh yeah, we do all color consults. And I'm like, why? Like, I never did them. I'd always tell them, I'll paint them pink, purple, and Kermit the Frog green. I don't care. It's your house.
My logo is this. You pick it, I'll stick it. You pick it, I'll stick it. Whatever you pick, I'll stick it. Whatever it is, I don't care, But I don't want to do that. I don't want that responsibility. So, but I have a designer. She's a real nice lady. I think she charges like $250 for a 2-hour consultation. And she's typically able to get them in the right direction pretty quick with that. Maybe just one follow up or something like that. But I leave it to her to deal with all that. And I just say, but here's the thing. I work with her too, and she kind of knows my basic colors. Sometimes she tries to stay within my basic colors, which makes life easy for me also. So, it's kind of like,
she has copies of those doors too.
Exactly. So, it makes it easy. The one thing that I've done, and this has happened in the last 2 to 3 years, is one of the shops that I work with, which is a freaking awesome idea, and I don't know why I didn't do this 100 years ago, was for the new stuff, every single job that we do, unless it's a repeat color, they make a door sample, 14 by 14, one extra. So if it's stain grade, paint grade, glazing, whatever it is, and they store all those in their showroom with a printout on the back, the color system, the stain system, the sealer system, the clear coat system. Now I log all this down for them, right? But that is, and now after 3 years of doing work for them, say I've done for that one shop, I've probably done 160, 170 different jobs. A lot of them are repeat colors. So if they're repeat colors, we don't do them again. But on all the new stuff, they make them and they keep them as samples in their shop. As the colors start to get a little bit outdated or the sample gets worn out, we swap it out. They put a new one in there. They're always looking fresh. And that's been a really good selling point for them, because people come into their showroom and they say they're looking for grays or they're looking for blues. We got 5 blue options in the shop already. They can take home and they can walk it around and see it already finished on the door.
I've seen Jim Kerrigan up at Jecco does that. They're like he keeps little squares of every color he does. The dude's got like a filing cabinet full of those things. And he just keeps a formula sticker on the back of them.
You keep the formula. That's exactly what we do. So we keep the formula sticker with it. On the stain cycle, we keep the stain system that it was ran, the sealer system that it was ran, and the clear coat system it was ran. And because I run a couple different finishes, it makes it easy for me, because sometimes it's hard to tell once I get the sample. I was like, I'm trying to remember. And then the owner of the shop's like, let's just put the whole system down on the back. You write it, just note it down or send us an email what it was on the sample he supplied. And then they do a printout sticker, makes it look really nice, professional. They put it on the back of the door. And that's been very successful for them. Yeah. So any of the shops that are builders and that want to set up a showroom, this is a really good way to do it. You just incorporate one extra door, 14 by 4, or whatever size you build for your sample sizes. They like a 14 by 14 because it's big enough. It's big enough so that they can show it around and take it for their granite countertops and all that stuff. It makes it a lot easier that way.
You can get a decent profile on a 14 by 14 if it's a MDF cut into it to where it's actually usable. I've seen some door samples that are like 6 by 6, and you're like, I can't see them. That's just going to take forever.
It's hard, and that's kind of one of the things that's helped us too, especially on the stain side. Because originally, when I would make stains for samples for customers, I would just use whatever lumber I had in the shop, and that was kind of one of the things that they told me. I was like, Dennis, you're giving us a piece 3 inches wide by 8 inches long. It's just not big enough rendition for them to be able to tell what it is. So with us doing the 14 by 14 doors, when they come in, because we've done so many stain colors, a lot of times they're picking the colors that we've already done before, which makes it a lot easier for me because the formula is already there. I'm not having to create a new color and spending time color matching. The whole way across the board, it's made it 1,000 times easier.
Man, stain matching was one of those things for me. Like, color matching, I love it. When you go to making your own colors in your shop, I think that is just the instant return on investment. I've always loved it. And then I started doing stain, and I see, like, so many guys are doing stain out there. And I think it is so much harder to do stain than it is to do pigmented paint color matching. Like, I struggled on stain matching forever.
It's not easy, and especially when you're trying to match older finishes. You got the patina that's on there. You got the sun. You got the UV light that's changed the top coat color, but the base coat's a little different, and you reflect it in a certain light, and it shows different angles.
Well, then you got, like, maybe you're replacing a door, and I got to replace this one oak door, and this oak is 15 years old. Well, there's no, but oak is not oak. If it doesn't come from the same tree, it's going to come out different. That always kicked my butt. Always.
That was the biggest thing for me when I started to do color matches. Was originally when I would this is a funny joke, man. This is actually really funny. But when I originally started doing stains and stuff, I didn't know anything about all the colorants that were even out there. There's no BS. So, like, there was only like 4 or 5 colors that were popular back in the days, in the 90s and stuff like that. But so we used a lot of Minwax stain. We used a lot of Deft stain that were out of the cans. And my professional color matching was basically, boxing other stains together. And what I learned early on was, if you let the can set on the shelf for a little while, the stain would actually settle, and all the concentrate would be down towards the bottom. So I would pour off the top part, and I could use the colorant that was on the bottom and mix that into another color to make the color. I didn't know nothing. I'm telling you, I was green, right? But I didn't know about dyes. I didn't know about the powders. I didn't know about UTCs. I didn't know about any of that stuff. So that's originally how I would do colors. And then one day I'm at the paint store, and I seen them mixing up some stain, and I seen the guy, pouring this in. He was making the stain. I'm like, oh, what is that? He goes, well, these are UTC colorants. And I'm like, oh, no shit. And I go, so that's how you build the stains? He goes, yeah. And I was like, well, then what do you put in the paint? And he goes, okay, so for paint, you use UTC 844 number. For stains, you use the oil side of it, you use the 824 basis. And I was like, huh. And I was like, what colors do you guys have? And he goes, every color of the rainbow. I was like, no shit. Oh, wow. I was like, can I buy those? He goes, I don't know. He goes, nobody's ever asked. And I was like, can you ask the manager and see if I can buy them? And I was at a Dunn Edwards paint store. And he comes back, he goes, yeah, well, they're really expensive. And I was like, okay, well, just tell me, how much are they? So he comes back, he's like, they're really expensive. It was like $36 for one color. Some of the reds and blues were like $50 or $60, just depending on the color you got. I said, how many different colors are there? He goes, the basic colors that we use for stains and stuff like that, he said, there's about 6 or 8 of them. And I was like, okay. I said, well, can I see all the colors? So he showed me some greens, like Pathalon green and Pathalon blue, which are really, really rich blues and greens. And I was like, maybe I won't need those too much. I said, I have to hell with that. I said, give me one of every one of them. Give me one of all you have. And I went back to the shop, and I started mixing them together, just playing with them, just mixing up the thick concentrate and rubbing them on wood. And I was like, well, shit, this is freaking easy. Because the way the color looked is the way it looked on the wood. Literally the way it looked, the way you mix the color, how it looked, that's how it looked on the wood. And so then, I found out about naphtha, and one of the guys that I had met was using naphtha. So the original mix that I used to build stain was naphtha, and we used the 824 lines for the colorants. The problem you had is in the summertime, naphtha is such a hot solvent that it would dry in like 30 seconds. So you'd be sweating your ass off trying to get it on without it biting on you. So one of the guys told me that you could use boiled linseed oil, 1 or 2 drops of boiled linseed oil to slow it down. So I was like, oh, cool. All right. So that's what I started doing in the beginning. But then the boiled linseed oil, if you went too many, it would be like using Minwax oil stain where you'd have to wait 24 hours for you to be able to seal over it because it would stay wet it would stay open for so long. And then, through the years, I found another guy who was using mineral spirits. So then I was like, well, mineral spirits takes too long, but naphtha works pretty good. So then I started doing like a 80% naphtha, 20% mineral spirits, and then using the UTC colorants to make our stains. And that's how we started doing it. And then I found out about dyes. So when we would have a real rich color, we had a really vibrant color. I learned about dyes. I would apply 1 coat of dye stain first. Say if it was a red or a yellow underneath, I would put that first, and then we would put the stain over the top of it. And then once you seal coated or clear coated it, that vibrance would pop through and come through the finish. And so that's how we did it. That's how we did it. And then fast forward in the water base, the first system I got was the Renner system. And I got the stain system, and they're like, oh, yeah, this is what we use to make all of our colors. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, the fuck? I mean, what the hell am I going to do with this? I got yellow, orange, blue, black, white, red. Like, I'm used to dealing with UTCs where they cheated already, You got burnt umber, you got raw umber, you got sienna, you got all the colors already there, They made them already for you, And I was like, shit. So that sat on the shelf for probably 4 or 5 months before I started playing with it. And then I started getting more and more stain jobs using the water-based stains. But what I realized is that even if I custom ordered a color match for a stain, and whatever stain company that did it in these systems, Renner or whatever it was, sometimes they were dead on and sometimes they weren't. But what I learned was just from my experience in the solvent side that I could adjust those colors real easy. I could adjust them real easy. Yeah. And then I started playing with toning. I started playing with glazing and, using the powder glazes. And within a short period of time, I realized that the opportunities and options of colors that you can do in water-based, for me, it felt like there was 100 times more options than it was in solvent. That was for me. I just felt like with the way that with the dyes and the colorants and the breakaway glazes and the wiping glazes, that there was just so many more colors you could hit, and still have the vibrant colors if you wanted them because of the dyes. That I just felt like it was a lot easier. Some of the clear, crisper colors were easier to hit on water-based than they were in solvent because a lot of the UTCs that people use to build solvents, they're muddy looking. They're really muddy. They don't have much clarity to them. So that was always a challenge on some of the stain projects that we did that it had a really vibrant color, was using the UTCs to get the color where you wanted to get the color match done. So it took a lot of playing around and stuff like that. But now I'm not a formula mixing person. I can make all the formulas on any one of the bands from the formula stick. That's not a problem. But I've never been somebody who wrote formulas for my own stains. I've always been an eye match person. If I've made the color one time, if I know what colors are in it, I can make it again.
Oh man, that's impressive, man.
Yeah. So nowadays when I build stains, I just need to write down what colors are in it. And then I think, and there's a couple guys out there that can do this. I think it's just because you see colors three-dimensionally. You don't see them traditionally. You're able to build stain colors, So back in the day when I was running solvent stains, I could match a color within 10 minutes. I could match a stain color. And now in water-based, I'm getting real close to those kind of times where I can match colors pretty quickly.
I would agree that you need that. Pigmented colors, I don't think it's much. I mean, pigmented colors are fairly easy, but you have to have an eye for stain. Like, I mean, I'm not colorblind or anything, but I don't have that third dimension eye, like you said, to see colors like that on stain. I struggle with it every time. So I just said, you know what? Stain's not my deal. Oh, but I was going to say breakaway glazes. Man, those powder glazes and breakaway glazes. I remember discovering those things. Man, that was changing. I mean, that from when you got to glaze, everyone's wanting that Van Dyke brown and on top of pigmented or stain, and it just took so ever when the powder glazes finally made it to the market. Oh my gosh, I was like, where have these been the last 10 years?
Well, I mean, and you could use they're so diverse in how you can use them. I mean, especially with a lot of the finishes that we're doing today. And for me here in California, I would say that in the last 3 to 5 years, white oak has made a huge emergence again. White oak, tons of white oak, and a lot of rustic looking finishes. And the nice thing with the breakaway glaze is it make it real easy because all you need to do is hit the base color. So get your base color there, and then now you can adjust it with your breakaway glazes. And you can take basically, like you said, the basic colors like raw umber or Van Dyke brown. I think is the color that's most commonly used. Van Dyke brown, black, and white. You can just take those and mix them together to get the patina that you want, and you're off to the races. I mean, it's made life a lot easier for me. When we used to do ceruse finishes, we'd have to wire brush the crap out of it, and then we would take UTC and concentrate, and then we'd have to push it in cross grain to get it to actually set in the grain so that it would bite, so that you would see the ceruse finish. Now it's like simple. You're gonna still wire brush it, right? But then you just spray it on and then just take everything off what you don't want, and it stays down inside the grain. I mean, shit. I mean, it's made it a lot easier.
Powder glazes made that ceruse thing awesome. We did kind of a ceruse finish once on a rift white oak, quarter sawn rift white oak, and the customer had a specific look they were wanting. Man, we tried and tried, and man, we were struggling, and we had just finished like that, what's the lime paint that everyone's putting on their brick? It was Ramabayo lime wash. It was like, we had some bucket there, and my lead guy was like, hey, what if we use that lime wash, but we don't dilute it down? A lime wash, that Ramabayo comes super thick, and then you mix it with water. He goes, let's not thin it down. Let's just brush it on and then sand it off. That slated lime did something to that white oak and gave it like a distressed gray white patina. Probably one of the most awesome finishes we've ever done. And it looked killer. But I was like, never would have thought to use lime wash.
I mean, that's what I mean. I mean, in the water-based side, there's so many lines. There's reactive stains out there that react. They give you these patinas, these greens, and these rust-looking colors. I mean, it's just so diverse now.
Have you had the chance to break into Envirolac's new stain program?
I'm using it paired with Renner's system on a pretty regular basis now.
And Stefan went top notch with that system. It looks, down to the literature and everything.
Renner had the system there, and they had their select colors, which made it very easy. I think Stefan picked up that football and ran 100 yards to the goal line with the system and how he set it up. I mean, they had it there, and he took that and he ran it 100 yards with it into the goal line and made a touchdown. I mean, he made it so easy for people to pick up that folder, and I think there's like 50 or 60 colors on there. Maybe there's more, but and Renner had the system. I know Renner had the system, and I know ICA probably had the system also. That was kind of one of the frontiers of those systems. I know they did, but they didn't make it as user friendly as he did.
Yeah, he made it super user friendly, and then it's the same raw materials. There's that whole micronized, the micronized pigments is. There's one guy in the whole world that is actually making the micronized pigments, that has the mills to do it. I'm sure other guys there might be out there. There's one main player over in Italy that does it all, but man, everything I've seen from it, I haven't played with it, but everything I've seen on the literature and what he did with the book and the packaging, I was like, man, that's a killer system. He's gonna do awesome with that thing. People are gonna take that thing and go crazy.
So what we did before I started using the Envirolac colors, so what we had done is Renter already had a basic system, right? They had their system, had their colorants that were already prepackaged that you could formulate right there. So that was another thing that I did. Was originally is I made basically cue cards, 4x6s on maple and oak. Every single one of their stain colorants that's in the book, I had made it and put it on wood chips. They have two other lines that they carry that are already on Fandex that I did the same thing to. So we had probably total about 40 colors. We had about total of about 40 stain colors that were already readily available for us that I had the formulas on already. Made it huge. So now my next project, when I get time, like I have all the time in the world, is to go through and do the same thing with the with the Envirolac system, is go through and actually make color chip chart. It makes it so much easier, man, to be able to, when a customer comes in, to just be able to say, here's a fan deck, and because they always bring in something, right? And instead of having to, again, away from having to color match, they come in. If I got 5 cherry colors, stain colors, and they bring in a cherry sample, one of those is going to be within 10 or 15% of it. And if I say these are my standard colors that we carry that are readily available, we can just plug and play this. If you want to do a custom color match, it's $175 additional to do the custom color match, or $225 to do the custom color match. 9 out of 10 times they're going to pick the one that's right, one of those that's closest to it. That's fine. Exactly. So those systems have definitely helped us in being able to manage projects with customers and being able to stay ahead of the game when it comes to those things. And it's just a little thing. Zach, I'm a small business, I'm a small business. I'm not a huge player in the game. To give you kind of an idea, I mean, I won't discuss sales or anything like that, but to give you an idea, we typically, just on coatings, we do a little bit over $100,000 a year in just coatings, between $100,000 and $120,000 a year in coatings. So I'm not on the big end. I think a mid-sized player, or a little bit bigger than mid-sized, is going to be probably around 200,000. That would, I mean, you closed accounts, accounts. I mean, in the realm of the industry, and the realm of the industry, I know we're small potatoes, because I mean, there's guys out there buying totes of shit.
Yeah, I mean, what I always told people all the time is what I found out in talking to the guys that, I mean, I got a buddy in Tulsa that I don't want to say he's got 30 painters. I mean, just insane.
Yeah, that's big.
3-man crews. They're everywhere, and I'm just like, I think the size, because I think you and I were similar size. It's like, I had 6 guys in the field and 4 guys at the shop, sometimes more or less, but right around there. That's what I averaged. But it's like a good size that's manageable as an owner and still be able to have the freedom of an owner. You get much bigger than that and you just start feeding a monster, and it's just, what's the point?
Well, I think you keep it under 4 or 5, or you got to be at between 12 and 15, because anywhere in there, you're not big enough. You're not big enough to really cover the overhead, workers' comp, and all the expenses that come with it, and the trucks and all that. So, and the last couple of years, what I've done is my team is 3 on my crew and myself, so there's 4 of us. Just my crew, just my 3 guys and myself, we can handle 2 kitchens to 2.5 kitchens a week, no problem, without even trying. If I have the kitchens in my shop, if say I have a 50 linear foot kitchen in my shop, boxes and the cabinet doors and all that, we can do a kitchen in about a day. And some change, just depending on the detail of the doors, because that takes a little bit more time. But we can do a kitchen, the sanding on it. We can do a kitchen, almost a full kitchen in a day, in the shop. So people ask me how. There's no way you could do 2 to 3 kitchens a week with the size crew you have. Well, yeah, you can when you have things set up and you have it, to where you're a lean machine. You can do it. But what I have done is I have a couple other crews of friends of mine that are in the trade that help us to move that along even faster. So I got a couple guys that will go out and they do on-site prep for us. They have their own businesses, but they'll go out and do on-site prep, paper, tape, plastic, sometimes sand, sometimes just primer. We run final coat on everything that we do, and we run our final process on everything that we do. But those little things have definitely helped us to be able to stay ahead of the game and to be able to manage as many projects as we do. You know, for a small shop like mine to be able to do 3 kitchens a week, that's a lot. It's a lot, man. I mean, it's a lot of work. Yeah. And I'm still a hands-on. I'm still a hands-on finisher. I could do it without, but here's the problem. If I don't work, if I don't work on the crews at all, and I have my crews just doing the work, they at best they might be able to do 2 kitchens a week. So it takes my profit side of it down to the point where when I make a decent living, yeah, I'll make an okay living, but not the same of me being still on the tools. You know, me being still on the tools. So, but what I would have to do is 2 more guys ain't going to fill that void. 2 guys, even semi-experienced guys, are not going to pick up the slack of me. So it would almost have to be like I picked up 4 more guys to be able to pick up the slack, to be able to cover me and then cover what I'm making as my wage now. I would have to pick up 4 more guys. And it just doesn't seem, it just doesn't seem like it's worth it for me.
The expenses increase exponentially. Workers' comp, taxes, W-2. I mean, Social Security. I mean, it's just, yeah, been down that road. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me to keep it lean the way it is, it works out really well. If I need help, if I start to get behind a little bit, I have enough friends out there in the industry that can jump in and help to pick up some of the slack. You know, and for me, that's helped us tremendously to be able to stay on task with what we're doing, to keep my costs down, especially because they're not my full-time employees, right? They're not my full-time headache. They carry their own insurance, they carry their own liability, they have all that because they're businesses themselves. So that's made things quite a bit better for us, you know, and doing it that way. And I mean, I think I would recommend that to anybody who's on the cusp, unless you can make the jump from 4 guys to 10 or 11 guys, then I would say that would kind of be the way to do it. Is if you can find some reputable guys in your neighborhood that you can build a relationship with and a trusting relationship that they can even go out and manage part of the project for you. They don't have to do the whole job, you know, even just get you started on the job, because the spraying part of it is. Yeah, I mean, in a kitchen, when you're spraying, total time you're spraying might be 2 to 3 hours. It's all the other work that, you know, the prep work, the labor, getting it all set up, the fans and all that stuff. So, you know, that's just kind of, you know, those are the things that have helped me and helped my business, you know, to be able to maintain and be able to continue doing the same amount of projects that we do. I've worked out a linear footage price with the teams that do help me. That makes sense. And so there's no question about what the price is. They don't need to look at a job. They don't need to see the job. All they need is an address where to go, and linear footage price has already been figured out. So they go out and they got a linear footage price for what they're doing, and they go out and do it. If they get it done in 6 hours, if they get it done in 2 hours, as long as it's done to the standards that we've already set up, I could care less. So they're crushing it. You know, those guys that are hustlers, those guys are out there crushing it because, you know, they're working their tail off, getting in there and getting out of there. And, you know, maybe they're making, at the end of the day, they could be making $100, $125 an hour when, you know, if they were working for themselves, maybe they're making only 40 or 50.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good way to do it. The contract labor, I did it a little bit. And I mean, it definitely, to get that growth before you can make that big jump, even if you want to, you may get there and be like, nah, I'll do it when I have to, but I don't want to.
Well, I think that's kind of the game model of a lot of the influencers that are selling the model of growing your business. I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think that may be kind of one of the unkept secrets, that maybe they do have a decent sized crew of between 9 and 11 or 10 and 12, but there's no way in my mind that you can do $4 million worth of sales, $5 million worth of sales, $6 million, $8 million worth of sales. You need manpower to be able to do that. So if a business does, if
We're
a
a
business,
service-based business.
we're a service-based business, man. I mean, you can't hide it, you know. So if you're doing $2 million a year and you know hours and time of projects, you know how many man hours it's going to take and how many men it's going to take or women to do that job. Makes it pretty simple, right? So if you're doing $6 to $8 million a year, you need to have an employee W-2 base of probably 60 to 80 employees. That's kind of the number where I'm thinking, you know, at least that.
Well, like my father-in-law, when I was learning it from him, his rule of thumb was we're service-based. You know, if you're W-2 and you're doing everything by the books, and you should be, because if you're not, you're always going to get caught. Uncle Sam is always going to get his share. You can't hide it from him. One way or another, he will get it. He was like 2,000 hours a year. If you're going to be legal, if you're figuring out how you can be profitable, every employee can provide you with approximately 2,000 hours of labor a year. So you can take that 2,000 hours, because there's 2,040 working hours in a year. And you could do Saturdays and Sundays, but legally you got to pay them time and a half. And that's going to be net negative on your bottom line. And 40 hours, they're going to be sick. They're going to have doctor's appointments. They're not going to show up. So he's like 2,000 hours a year per employee. So if you, however much money you want to make, find out your hourly rate of what you're going to charge for every single one of those hours. If it's 50, 2,000 hours a year, do the math. That's what one employee is going to generate in top line revenue. How much money you want to make? That's how many people you got to have. So the only way to make more money is you got to raise your rates, or you got to hire more people. And I mean, I lived by that. And
And that's what I'm saying. So I think maybe, you know, some of these businesses or some of these, you know, influence business sellers that are selling a system of how to grow your business, I wonder if some of them are leaving out the subcontracting side of that business. That
100%, they have to be.
Maybe they're carrying an employee base of 15 or so, or 10 or 15, but maybe they have a subcontracting base of another 20 or 30 to be able to generate those kind of monies.
100%. There's the math just isn't there.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think. And again, that's just one of my theories. You know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do have 64 employees, but I mean, 64 employees that show up to work every day, that are out in the field, or having, imagine all those people have to have trucks. They all have to have vans. They all have to have vehicles to be able to go out to these job sites. So think about the amount of money. I have 2 work trucks plus my own vehicle. 2 work trucks plus my own vehicle. The insurance, the liability that I have to carry on the vehicles, the wear and tear on the vehicles. You know, all that stuff is I couldn't imagine doing it times 10 or 12. The fuel in California, in California, we're paying $4.65 a gallon for gas. Yeah. So I mean, that's crazy. I know a guy. I know one guy up in Northern California, and I've talked to him a couple times, and he's actually picked my brain on the refinishing side a couple times. I can't remember his name offhand, but he has. When we talked, I think he said he has between like a $4 and $5 million business, but he has 42 W-2 employees. He has 3 full-time salesmen that are out selling every day, all day. That's all they do. Those are their jobs, just to go out and sell. So, I mean, that's the other thing, is if you have that many people, imagine the workforce that you have to sell the jobs. I mean, it's insane. I mean, to do $6 or $8 million a year, you gotta have 5, 6 people out there just selling.
Yeah, and you can't just take, and that's what I always would tell guys, and they ask me how to scale. I mean, you can't just, you know, you've got 2,000 hours. Say you've got 3 guys. You've got 6,000 hours to sell a year. You want to get the most money out of those 6,000 hours as you can. That's just the name of the game. I mean, you want to work more and make a little bit, or do you want to work less and make more? Well, I would rather try to get the most premium jobs that I can and work less and take home more money. I mean,
Well, that's what I'm saying, but you got to take all the variables into that, right? So say if you, I mean, you have to have so much confidence and so much trust in your crew, especially once it gets that big. I mean, I've had issues with employees with just, I mean, let's get real. I've had issues with employees just taking a crap break, taking a shit break, for 25 minutes, when you got a guys making 28 to $32 an hour, and you are eating up, if they're eating up a half an hour to 40 minutes a day of your time playing around on their cell phone or taking extra extended time in the bathroom, imagine that times 10 or 15 or 20. And it's just it's just human nature, man. I mean, nowadays with cell phones and social media and all these other apps out there, it's just human nature that they're going to play on their phone. They're going to look at their phone. That 5-minute bathroom break turns into a 16 or 18-minute bathroom break because they're flipping through videos. I mean, I've done it, you've done it, we've all done it. And you look at the time, you're like, God dang, I was in here for 16 minutes. I mean, because 12 minutes of it, you're sitting there flipping through videos.
Yep. Yeah. It takes, I mean, it's interesting seeing all the different stuff that's out there.
Yeah. I mean, so I think right now we're back into reality of the swing of things. I think through COVID, we kind of seen the unreality of what the numbers in the business were. The dreamland. I mean, I call it La La Land is what I called it, La La Land. There was a lot of paint businesses that opened up. They seen the money that was being made. Maybe they were handymen, maybe they were whatever, and then they got into the I can paint a cabinet business because it was so popular. But I think we're back into reality now because I know, and I feel bad for them, but I know a lot of those startup businesses that started in the last 3 or 4 years, they've been struggling. They've really been truly struggling. Yeah. And the one thing that I preached, Zach, from the beginning when I started my social media presence, the one thing that I preached from the beginning was learn your trade, man. Learn your trade and be diverse. Learn your trade and be diverse. That's it.
That was going to go right into, I know we're getting in there. I didn't want to keep you too much longer, but that was going to go into, if we start looking at it, what's a resource or something that you would recommend to guys thinking about getting into this trade?
So, I mean, here's the thing. When I started out in the industry, it was messed up. Honestly, it was truly messed up because it was a very hush hush. It was a very private community. It was very secretive. And I remember in the beginning when I was learning, my dad even hired a couple finishers and brought them into the shop so we could train off of them. Hired them as employees so that we could learn from their skill set to be able to advance our skill set. And I wasn't one. It was multiple guys that came in. I mean, they were tearing labels off of stains. They would come in with these, basically mason jars full of colors and things like that. Nothing labeled to hide, to not show what they were using and what they were doing. So it was really challenging. It was hard, man. It was hard. Honestly, it was truly hard to learn. And so my best advice to anybody who wanted to get in this industry, who wanted to learn this industry, is put a little bit of money together and jump on some of these workshops that can help you, especially if you're going into the water-based side of it. And it sounds like a lot of money. It seems like a lot of money. I know it seems like a lot of money, but let me tell you something. In 2002, I wanted to take a glazing class that was being put on by, it was sponsored by Mohawk. And it was a glazing class on how to do patina and how to do glazing, right? This is in 2002. That class for a 2-day course was $2,500. If you wanted it, that's what it cost. That's what it cost if you wanted it. I couldn't afford it. I didn't do it. So what did I do? I had to figure it out on my own. You know how long? I mean, it took me years. I struggled and Later on, I kicked myself in the ass saying, shit, I wish I would have taken that class. It probably would have helped me fast forward quite a bit. So I would say put your time into learning. Please don't practice on people's furniture. Please don't practice on people's kitchens. Learn the skill set a little bit first. And remember one other thing, that all of the coatings across the board that we are using, these are professional refinishing coatings. They're really not DIY based. So with every coating that you use, there is going to be a tweak. There is going to be an adjustment to be able to figure them out. When we sprayed solvent in the beginning, when we sprayed lacquers and things like that, there was never one product that I could just take right out of the can, other than a wiping stain that was pre-made. There was never a product I could pull right out of the can and take it out and spray it perfectly and it came out nice. There was always adjustments, as you know, there was always adjustments and tweaks that you had to apply to the coating to make it spray properly. And it was paired with proper tip, proper pressure, proper adjustment of the coating, either being thinning or retarding or reducers or what have you. And I think that's the one thing. I think that's the one thing that's not being talked about enough. And the water-based side is they're the same. They're not house paint. They're not trim paint. They're custom professional coatings that are designed for this application. So they need a little bit of adjusting. How you're going to learn how to do that is by taking these classes that are being put on. There's many guys out there in the industry that are putting on these professional refinishing classes. And I would say stay towards the ones that are hands-on refinishing classes, that are really hands-on refinishing classes. Stick towards those ones. They have some that kind of mix in a little bit of marketing and things like that. Learn the trade first. Learn the meat and potatoes first, and then go and take a marketing class from somebody who does marketing, or go and take a class that on business that's somebody who does business, because I think you're going to get more out of it that way. That's my advice. The next thing is the investment in the proper tools. Do some research. I don't care what brand you use. I'm privy to Tritech air sprayers. I'm privy to Surf Prep. I'm privy to Festool. I'm privy to a certain brand of tools because they have, for one, held the test of time for what we do, especially as much as we do. They've held up and they're durable, but there's a lot of different brands out there. But you're going to have to spend some money. You're going to have to invest some money. You're not going to be able to. You can, I guess, in the beginning to start, you can use a tool off the shelf of Home Depot or Lowe's. I guess you probably can, but you'll notice really shortly if you start doing this more that those tools aren't going to hold up and last you like the tools that you spend a little bit of money on. You're not going to get the quality of sanding. You're not going to get the quality of the tool that you're getting. You're not going to get the sprayability as you would out of some of these, professional machines that are out there. So, those things.
Yeah, you got to crawl before you can walk, but at the same time, don't be afraid to invest in good equipment because, I mean, as old as the adage and as tired as people are probably hearing it, it's true in every aspect. You get what you pay for.
You get what you pay for. I mean, like me, I could spray with anything. I could probably get a Harbor Freight gun for $16 or $14 and I can work it and make it spray. I could probably go get a Home Right sprayer for $29.95 and I could spray cabinets with it. Could I make it work? Yes, I can make it work. But the skill level that I have is going to help me to make that look good. As somebody who doesn't do this every day, they might struggle a little bit more because they don't know, like, oh, I'm going to have to thin this a little bit more, or I'm going to have to thicken this coating up a little bit more to be able to make it spray, because that machine only comes with 2 orifices to be able to spray with. It only has 2 options, not like a professional sprayer where you have the gamut of spraying with the most finest mist of a 06 all the way up to a Canon of a 24 orifice. I mean, that's a big extreme. Those are big extremes, but, this is what I mean. I talked with a guy a year ago or something, and he had went down. He seen my videos. He got, he went and bought an airless from Home Depot or something like that, $3.95, and he was trying to spray cabinets with a 517 tip that came with it. And he's like, man, this is crazy. I'm like, I'm going through a gallon in 30 seconds. And, I was like, well, what tip are you using? He goes, well, it came with the 517. Yeah, I was like, oh my God,
I don't even know why they ship those with them. Every time you buy one of those rigs, you just throw that tip in the trash. But if you don't know, you don't know.
You don't
Again,
know,
that
you
goes
don't know.
back to your earlier one. You got to take classes. You got to learn the products. You got to learn the equipment before you try to jump in. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess those would be my best advice.
I mean, that's killer advice. So, I mean, we'll wrap it up. I don't want to get you in trouble for mama, or I don't want to be in trouble. Um, but just for the community, the listeners, it's going really good. But I always like to ask everyone, yeah, this might be harder for you. You've been in the limelight a lot more than most guys. What's something about you that might surprise the listeners? Something to know, either a hobby or collectible, something you do that might be everybody just be like, huh.
I think this would probably be the one. I think this would probably be the one that probably shock most people is that I'm a Christian and I believe in God and we have a strong faith in our home and we practice that pretty steadily in our home. I guess that'd probably be the biggest thing. And I don't like to talk. I don't like to bring that out because I know how controversial it can be. But I think since we brought in God and God into our home and Jesus into our home, close to 15, 18 years ago, my life's changed. My home life's changed. It has definitely brought our family closer. So I guess that'd probably be the biggest thing that maybe a lot of people would be shocking about. And the reason being is because to be honest, I grew up in the ghetto. I grew up in the ghetto, and I grew up a little rougher style. Um, guys guys settled their disputes with their hands, and that was pretty common. And that was pretty common when I grew up. Um, the first part of my experience getting into social media, I had a very short fuse. I was very defensive, I guess you could say. It had to be my way or no way, and I really try to reflect on that and really try to soften it up a little bit and be more open to guys. Listen, these are my opinions. These are my suggestions. I hope that the information that I put out, the videos that I put out, the information that I share can help you. But I'm not going to say that my system's the only way that works because there's a lot of guys out there doing it different ways. Um, these are just my experiences and sharing the information that I have to try to shortcut what I feel like was a struggle for me and probably for a lot of people coming into the industry of how to learn how to do things. And I've talked about this on my own platform is I feel like for me, it's better for me the more that I share, the more that I help people, and the more that I educate people. And here's the reason why. If I go and bid a job and I'm bidding a job against somebody who's using pro enamel at $19 or $24 a gallon, I have no chance in hell of ever getting that quote. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people still look at price point. I can sell all the bells and whistles, man. Let me tell you something. I'm a salesman. I could sell ice to an Eskimo. I could sell fire to Hades, right? But at the end of the day, it comes down to a number a lot of times for a lot of people, right? But I started thinking to myself, I said, well, how do I make this a more level playing field? Let me educate people. Let me teach them the proper way to do things. Let me show them the best products to use on the market. And there's multiple good products out there. Let me show them. Let me myself get educated in every one of these coatings that I can teach all of them across the board. And there's probably 5 or 6 different brands out there that I use on a regular basis. That not only am I proficient at using them, but I'm so proficient that I can teach somebody how to use these coatings and make it very easy for them to use. Now what I've done is I've made it an even playing field for even my competition because now they want to use the products that I'm using because they're better products, right? So now when I'm going out and I'm bidding a job, Jack or Bill or Mike or whoever else that I'm bidding against, they're using Renner also. or they're using Centurion, or they're using Envirolac, or they're using what, but they're using these industrial coatings that come at a premium, right? So now when I'm bidding against that person, now we're bidding against who's going to do the best work.
Now you're bidding on service and craftsmanship, which is the way it should be.
And I feel like over the past 25 odd years, I've built my reputation to the point in the quality of work that we do where it's at a super high level. I'm not perfect, okay? I mean, I F up, and trust me, my word is platinum, gold when it comes to work. Not always that way in my home life, and that's the one vice that I deal with sometimes, and that's the one problem that I deal with in the home life is, my wife tells me all the time, I wish you had the word that you had, with your customers as you do in the home. Because we're procrastinators by nature, us men, we're procrastinators. We're people, man, but she still respects me because she knows the work that I put in. She knows the time that I put in to build this small business, to have an impeccable relationship with customers and to have an impeccable track record with the work that we do. Okay. The newest shop that I picked up work for, we're almost at 3 years that I've been doing work for them. The main reason the owner had gotten rid of his old finishers because he wouldn't change coatings. He was using pre-catalyzed lacquer. He wouldn't change coatings. The owner did research. The owner is about being innovative. I mean, he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on equipment with CNC machines and efficiency machines and the whole 9 yards. And he couldn't get his subcontracted finisher to change coatings. So 3+ years ago, he reached out to me and asked me what we were using. I told him that we were using these products, and he was, I'm interested. So in 3 years of me doing work for him, now mind you, 60, 70 kitchens a year, we haven't had one callback for failure. We have not had one single callback for water damage failure, which is the hugest damage that we would deal with before when we were running Solvent. Okay. And he's just blown
that's something
away.
to be proud of.
That's something to be proud of, man. So I know that the coatings, and I know what we're doing is right. I know that the brands that we're using and the coatings that we're doing are right. And I'm still to this day fixing the old finisher's work from the lacquers in the last 5 years of jobs that he's done. And literally the first year that I came in, I think we did 3 or 4 jobs that we had to redo because he had used solvent on them. And that was the big problem that I had running solvents, and that's why I stopped using them. Along with the health issues, along with the asthmatic feelings that I was dealing with them. And not to say that the water-based coatings that we use don't have their own drawbacks. They do have some risks. There are ISOs that go along with those. But in all the studying and all the information that I've gotten through chemists, through coating manufacturer owners, and from resin suppliers, and the water-based side of it, it's considerably safer than the solvent side of it.
Oh, 100%. One of my favorite sayings, the guy who says it, Mr. Miles, and every gallon of paint is nothing but 1,000 compromises.
Right. Well, that's it.
Solvent, water, there's always going to be something. You got to find out what compromises you're willing to give up and what works for you, and stick with that system and go make some money. I mean, that's it. I mean, nothing's going to be perfect. The perfect coating doesn't exist. I just wanted to say, man, I appreciate you coming on. This was an awesome episode. This a lot of insights, a lot of good information. Definitely want to get you back on for sure. Maybe do a live.
I think yeah. Let Eric do his, and then we can do a duo.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, for sure. Any last words of wisdom to the finishing community?
The last word. I think I've said it already. I mean, honestly, I think I've said it already. I think I've said it already. Be honest. I guess that's the biggest thing that I could say is be honest, be true with your customers, and always try to strive and achieve to do the best that you possibly can with the work that you're putting out. That's the best advice I can give you.
Midway _ interiors, right? No.
So Midway _ 10902 is my Instagram. And then if you guys want to watch some of my videos that I put on YouTube, it's Dennis Rodriguez / Midway Interiors on my YouTube channel. And we like all the likes and subscribes that you guys can do. It helps us. It helps our business. If anything, that's always a big, shot in the shoulder for us to help to grow that social media platform.
You guys aren't following Dennis on YouTube and Instagram, get out there, subscribe, he's got some awesome information out there. I thank you for coming on the Bearded Finisher podcast once again. Everybody, thank you for listening. I appreciate it, and we will talk to everybody next time.
See you guys next time. Have a good one.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the Bearded Finisher podcast. We thank everyone for joining. Keep hustling, keep learning, and never settle for anything less than your best. Remember, the path to perfection is a journey, not a destination. Until next time.